Today is day 3 of the government shutdown, and there's still no sign of a resolution as Republicans and Democrats continue to trade accusations of who's to blame here. Votes on a funding bill are scheduled to resume in the Senate this afternoon, following a break yesterday. But if those votes fail again, I'm told no votes are expected over the weekend, which would extend the shutdown until at least Monday. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said Democrats will have another chance today to vote to reopen the government, and that negotiations with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are not going to accomplish a lot.
I think what, government agencies ought to be doing is the job and the work, and that's what I try to stay focused on. There is a blame game that goes on every time there's a government shutdown. I don't think that's constructive. I don't think it's about who wins and who loses. I think the people that lose in this are the American people, and probably most specifically federal workers. So I'm all about getting it back open again. I think shutdowns are nobody wins, and I think honestly, for the most part, they're stupid. We really shouldn't be shutting the government down, and it shouldn't be taken hostage to do other policy things that are totally unrelated to funding the government.
Thune also defended the Trump administration's plans for permanent federal layoffs due to the shutdown, as well as revoking billions in federal funding for projects that just so happen to be in blue states. He said none of those things would happen if Democrats helped reopen the government, and warned Democrats are, quote, playing with fire. Schumer responded yesterday, suggesting Americans were turning against Republicans and writing in part, quote, Americans blame Trump and Republicans for the shutdown, and the longer they drag it out, the deeper the pain, and that blame will grow. We've seen some polling that actually sort of underscores that, at least at this early point. It comes as President Trump and prominent Republicans continue to push the false claim that Democrats forced the government to shut down because they want to give free health care to immigrants who are in the United States illegally. The president posted about it in all caps yesterday morning on Truth Social. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries addressed that issue yesterday on a podcast.
You know what's interesting in that Oval Office meeting? It was the meeting lasted for over an hour. And the amount of time that we spent literally in talking about the issue of health insurance for undocumented immigrants was less than 10 seconds. You know why? Because they know it's a lie. So they didn't even bother to bring it up because the cameras weren't rolling. But they'll go out to their press conferences without us, where we're not able to fact check them in real time. And they'll continue to try to spout that lie. But the American people aren't buying it. They know this fight is about Medicaid. It's about their hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics.
Leader Jeffries is going to be on Morning Joe a little bit later this morning, setting the tone for the day and the days ahead. But as the Associated Press points out, Democrats say they're pushing for the inclusion of key health care provisions in this next congressional spending package. What they're seeking is an extension of tax credits that millions of Americans use to buy insurance on the Affordable Care Act exchange, as well as a reversal of Medicaid cuts that were made in President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill that was signed into law this summer. Immigrants in the U.S. illegally are not eligible for any federal health care programs, including the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. Against that backdrop, I want to bring in Oriana Gonzalez. She's a politics and policy reporter for Notice. So talk a little bit about the ways that Democrats, as we stretch into day 3, are starting to, I'd say, finally push back on the misleading claim that Republicans have been saying that this is all about undocumented immigrants getting services that they're illegally, that they're not able to actually legally get. That's illegal for them to access them. But also the way that they are defining success in this moment. Why are they still fighting this fight?
Exactly. Well, first of all, that is the one topic that I think took them quite a while to start addressing. It wasn't until recently, in like maybe the last day or two, that we started seeing actually Democrats addressing it and saying, no, this wouldn't give funding to undocumented immigrants. Yeah. We're talking about people that are considered lawfully present. So,
right. They're not citizens, but they're going through the process the way that exactly. Republicans and Democrats alike say everyone should come to this country legally.
Exactly. We're talking about people on TPS, DACA, people seeking asylum. So the fact that they're now getting to this, it comes a little bit late as the blame game continues, as the discussions continue. But it seems that so far, and we've seen polling, it's pretty early, that most Americans are blaming Trump and Republicans for this. So maybe that talking point that they're getting at just now might help them out again, continue this blame game, and maybe pollings will go in their favor for that.
Because right now, and you're right, there are several polls at this early point that show that Trump and Republicans Republicans are to blame, you can understand, and Democrats have pointed to this, the fact that Republicans control all the levers of power in Washington, both houses in Congress as well as the White House, that Americans might jump to that conclusion. That's what Democrats are banking on. But when you see that we're now likely to go through Senate votes later this afternoon where nothing changes, they'll go home for the weekend, they'll come back on Monday. How long does this stretch on? Because that guarantees that it's in a shutdown for about a week at least.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we have to remember, Hakeem Jeffries said earlier this week, I believe it was Wednesday, that he thinks the shutdown will be done well before their next paycheck. That's the end of the month.
Which is the end of the month. That's still weeks away.
Exactly. So we could be seeing anything between, a week or so, where maybe things get solved on Monday, or potentially at the end of the month. Like, really, we're playing with a lot of chess pieces right now, and there's no clue exactly where this will go, because we haven't seen Republicans wanting to budge and negotiate with Democrats, and Democrats don't just want to give up and vote on their CR.
I really do have questions, too, of what will be enough for the Democratic base right now. And I think that's something that in the conversations I'm starting to have now with lawmakers, they're realizing that, yes, health care is the right fight to have. But if it's something where they come out with Affordable Care Act subsidies and a deal on that, is that enough for the base to placate them? I think that is still kind of an open question here. But there's one more story that I want to get you on. President Trump appears to be openly embracing the conservative blueprint Project 2025 amid this government shutdown, despite distancing himself from it during his 2024 campaign. In a social media post yesterday, Trump announced he would be meeting with his budget chief, Russ Vought, identifying him as of Project 2025 fame, to discuss agency cuts amid the shutdown. Vought had told House Republicans on a conference call earlier this week that mass firings at the federal level would be happening, in addition to the hundreds of thousands of government workers who are typically furloughed during a shutdown. Those are temporary, not permanent. That's the big difference here. The comments come after Trump spent much of last year denouncing Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's massive proposed overhaul of the federal government, drafted by many of Trump's longtime allies and administration officials, including Vought. Back during the campaign, Trump repeatedly insisted he had no knowledge of this blueprint, that he'd never read it, that he had no idea who was behind it. He even went so far as to call it seriously extreme and said it was conceived by people on the severe right, in his words. When asked about Trump's reversal, a White House spokesperson told the Associated Press, quote, Democrats are desperate to talk about anything aside from their decision to hurt the American people by shutting down the government. So that White House official not actually engaging with the premise here, which is that Trump is now openly embracing something that he pretended he had never heard of during the 2024 campaign. That's, of course, politically helpful to him, given the fact that Democrats tried to make 2024 a referendum on Project 2025. Here we are now, though, with Vought leveraging the government to continue to pressure Democrats to get on board with this clean continuing resolution and reopen the government, sort of reminding them that they think Americans have faced pain so far. They ain't seen nothing yet. That's at least what I read in the way that they've handled it.
Now, the first thing I want to say is, am I surprised? Not really. You know, as much as he wanted to distance himself from Project 2025, it was not only written by his allies, but so many people involved ended up in the administration. So this sudden reversal is not something that I am exactly sitting here and saying that I didn't expect it.
Right.
You know, and at this point, you know, he's on his second term. This is not something that he has to run away from anymore. If he wants to talk about Project 2025, if he wants to say, and I think he introduced Russ Vought as of Project 2025 fame, he can. Now, what comes next, I believe, would be how Democrats play with that. Would they want to make it a thing again ahead of 2026? You know, say to voters, see, this is what we have been talking about. But at the same time, is that going to be enough for voters because the election's already passed and Trump doesn't have to worry about that anymore?
So in the short term, I keep hearing rumblings of some kind of a potential bipartisan deal, maybe on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Unclear what exactly it's centered around. But you and I both noticed something when Speaker Johnson gave a press conference yesterday, that he talked about the Senate not having sent anything back to the House yet, which for those people who don't necessarily remember their Schoolhouse Rock, you need to pass it through both houses. And right now, the whole plan is for the Senate to pass what the House has passed. So why would the Senate need to send something back to the House? Do you have any understanding of?
That was perhaps a slip up on part of the Speaker, you know, because Thune's line and Johnson's line has been, we are going to keep pushing this CR, the one that the House passed, and just keep going until Democrats budge. So him suddenly saying that he's expecting the Senate to send him something at some point, it shows at this point that Republicans are wary. It shows that, Democrats are not budging right now. Sure, there's 3 Senate Democrats that voted with them to advance their CR, but we haven't seen Jeanne Shaheen, for example, giving up the fact that, she hasn't alluded to the fact that she plans to support it. It really points out that Democrats are, staying strong in this. And when we hear Hakeem Jeffries say we're aligned, it looks like, he means it.
Yeah, Jeffries might mean it. It truly is a question of if Senate Democrats can stay aligned. And right now, I actually agree with you. I think that they are. And you've got people like Senator Shaheen who are saying, I'm not going to vote for this yet because I do think that there's a bipartisan deal to be had. She went on Fox News yesterday talking about why it would help Republicans to do a deal on this as much as it would help Democrats. It's all really fascinating. Oriana Gonzalez, politics and policy reporter for Notice, I thank you for being here as always. Have a good weekend. We're going to need some rest.